It's no secret that of all the car manufacturers, Tesla has done the most to proliferate high-speed DC fast charging here in North America. But if I were to ask you which company has done the second most, would you be able to answer that question? I don't think most people could. I'll give you the answer, and it's General Motors. In addition to being a founding member of Aboona, the new DC fast charging network that promises to install 30,000 plus high-speed DC fast charging stalls here in America in the next 5 years. They've also partnered with EVgo to install 2,000 more DC fast chargers in 500 locations, including many at Pilot Travel Centers and the Flying J Travel Centers. So General Motors has actually done a lot to install DC fast charging here in North America. And they just came out recently, a couple months ago, with a new announcement, another partnership, and that's with ChargePoint. And in this new partnership, they're going to install 500 additional DC fast chargers across the country. Now, they started installing them really close to my house. Actually, I live in northern New Jersey, and some of the first ones installed are in upstate New York. And I was taking a look at the map, and it just so happens that they're installed on a route that would take me to Niagara Falls. Now, I've never been to Niagara Falls. It's a little less than 400 miles from my house, so I thought it might be fun to take a ride up there. And I have a Cadillac Escalade IQ on loan from GM to do range and charge testing. So I said, hey, I've got a couple spare days. Why don't I get my wife and even my parents, throw them in the back seat, the executive seating option that this Escalade IQ has, and we'll take a road trip up to Niagara Falls using the new ChargePoint chargers that were just installed because of this program. So first thing in the morning, I'm gonna pack up the Escalade IQ and head up to Niagara Falls. Let's get into it. All right, so we're on the road, heading up to Niagara Falls. The Escalade IQ is loaded up with my wife Meredith over here, who has her mobile office set up and is actually working as we drive with her mobile hotspot. And in the back seat we have my parents, Tom and Eileen. So they've never been to Niagara Falls, as nobody in this car has been to Niagara Falls, which is crazy because it's really not that far from us. We live in northern New Jersey. It is close to 400 miles, but all things being considered, people travel long distance to go to Niagara Falls, and none of us have ever been there. But we will be there later today. So we're loaded up and headed there now. We are going to make a stop in Cortland, New York, because that's where one of these new ChargePoint chargers is installed. This program that General Motors formed with ChargePoint is going to add 500 DC fast chargers in more than 100 sites across the country. But as I mentioned earlier, some of the first sites that they've opened, they only have 5 sites open so far. 3 are in upstate New York. One is in Cortland, New York, where we're headed to now. The other one's actually in Niagara Falls. And then the other one's in Lake Placid, New York. They kind of installed the Lake Placid and Niagara at destinations that people would travel to. So that's a good location for them. And then there's one in Anaheim, California at an In-N-Out Burger, and another one in Colorado. It's actually at a Chipotle in Denver, Colorado. So there's only 5 sites open right now with 20 stalls, but that's going to expand to over 500 chargers at over 100 locations. And I just thought that this was a little newsworthy. I don't think General Motors is getting enough credit for, and when I say General Motors, I mean GM Energy. GM Energy is a division of General Motors, and they're the ones that are actually responsible for installing the DC fast chargers in this program. So I want to make sure, you know, it is kind of like a sub company, but it's General Motors, it's just GM Energy. So yeah, I just don't think that they've been getting enough credit. Everybody talks about Tesla and the supercharger network, and it is fantastic, and it deserves praise because Tesla went out and did it when nobody believed it even could be done when they started this 13, 14 years ago. And I think most of the other companies were looking at Tesla and thinking, you're crazy. You're going to install chargers across the whole country and even the world and sink billions of dollars into that. Let somebody else do it. But it proved that that model actually works and is needed. And General Motors, as I mentioned, seems to be, besides Tesla, the most active in this space as far as the automakers go. They're installing thousands of chargers with EVgo, and then they have another program with EVgo with the pilot travel centers where they're going to install a couple thousand chargers, and now this new program with ChargePoint and another 5,000 DC fast chargers. And that's all in addition to them being a founding member of Aboona, which is a little puzzling to me, and hopefully I can get some clarity on this later. I hope to speak with Wade Schaefer, who's the Vice President of GM Energy, soon, and include it in this video here, which hopefully you'll see him later on in the video. I don't have that 100% confirmed if I'm going to have him on yet, but I want to talk to him about strategy with charging, because it almost seems to me like once they announced the Aboona network and that they were going all in on that, that would be like, okay, this is what we're doing for DC fast charging. But it's not. They have these other programs on the side of Aboona that are installing thousands of DC fast chargers also. So I'd like the opportunity to chat with them about what the strategy is. They're doing all these things at once, when I think most other companies that are involved in Aboona are like, okay, this is our investment in charging. We're part of Aboona, go do it, and that's good enough for us. But General Motors is doing a lot more, and I think people should realize that. Okay, so we're headed up to Cortland. The funny thing is, in this Escalade IQ, it has such great range. I didn't even charge it yesterday. I fully charged it to 100% when I did a charge recording like 3 days ago. And since then, I drove like 140 miles, and it still had like 350 miles remaining range when we left on this trip. It was only 68% charged, and it said 351 miles of remaining range. So I didn't even plug it in, which is nuts to me that I'm going on a 400-mile road trip, and I didn't even think to plug the car in the night before, which you usually always, whenever I'm on a long road trip, make sure it's fully charged, set the daily charge limit from 80% up to 100% to get that extra energy for the road trip. This thing has so much range that it didn't matter. I didn't even charge it last night. The stop that we're going to go to is, I think it's about 190 miles in Cortland, and it's at a Denny's. And I'm also interested in checking out the chargers there, because they're the new Omniport ChargePoint express chargers, where you have the NACS connector and the CCS connector integrated into one. So I haven't used one of those yet, and I want to check out how it works. I suppose when I activate the charging session, I'll select which connector I want, and either the CCS will pull out or the NACS. Of course, we need a CCS1 connector for this Escalade IQ. General Motors hasn't made that transition yet to the NACS. I think that's going to start happening next year, but for now, I need the CCS connector. So, all right, well, we'll check in when I'm in Cortland at the Denny's, and we're going to plug in and get a little charge before we continue on the trip up to Niagara Falls. State of Charge is powered by Qmerit, North America's premier installer of electric vehicle charging equipment. After I've helped you decide which charger to buy, follow the link in the description of my videos and have Qmerit install it. And if you do follow that link, Qmerit will waive the $150 installation deposit. But this is an exclusive offer for State of Charge followers. So in order to get that offer, you must follow the link in the description of my videos. Okay, so we arrived at Denny's. It was 175 miles from my house. We left my house at 68% state of charge, and we arrived here at 25% state of charge. Just shows you the crazy range on the Escalade IQ. We drove 175 miles at 70 to 80 miles an hour, started at 68% and ended at 25%. This thing is a range monster. So I backed into the parking spot here at Denny's, plugged into the ChargePoint charger. Now these ChargePoint chargers here are limited to 200 kilowatt. So we won't be charging at the full 325 or so kilowatt that the Escalade IQ would pull. But that's okay, because quite honestly, we only need to stay here for about 10 minutes, even at 200 kilowatts. So that's not a problem at all. We're gonna hang out a little bit longer, grab something to eat, but we are gonna stop at the ChargePoint Express chargers that are part of the GM Energy and ChargePoint partnership up at Niagara when we get up there. So for now, we'll hang out, grab a coffee here, and probably head out in about 20 minutes. We'll see you when we're up at Niagara Falls. Okay, so I've arrived up in Niagara, and I'm at the Cambria Hotel, which is the ChargePoint and GM Energy location up here in Niagara Falls. Interesting thing is, as I pull in the parking lot, I was like, oh wow, a couple of Teslas are charging here. But no, they're not charging here. They're just parked here right now, taking up parking spaces and not plugged in. These are probably the same Tesla owners that would be furious if they pulled up to a Tesla supercharger and there was a bunch of other cars parked and just blocking the chargers and not charging. But that's really not GM's problem or fault. These people just parked here. I suppose it's the Cambria Hotel that should be policing their parking lot. So anyway, plugged in, gonna be charging up for a bit, and then checking out the scenery. But one thing I wanna mention is I had thought that all of the chargers in this new GM Energy and ChargePoint program were the Omniport chargers. At least that's how I thought I read it in the press release. That's not the case. When I was back in Cortland, those chargers were not Omniport, and these aren't either. So that's one of the things I'm gonna talk to Wade about when hopefully we have a little bit of a conversation about the new ChargePoint GM Energy collaboration. But I'm up here now, gonna charge only for about 15 or 20 minutes. I just wanna top off a little bit and then check out the scenery up here in Niagara. So I'll probably check in tomorrow when we're on the way home. All right, back in Cortland, charging up on the way home. Niagara Falls was beautiful. Spent last night and this morning there checking out the falls on the Canadian side. Absolutely fantastic. If any of you guys have the opportunity to visit Niagara Falls, I highly recommend it. Really nice. And driving up there now became a little bit easier with this new General Motors and ChargePoint initiative. I have had no problem charging here, also up in Niagara. The only little blip was those Teslas that were blocking the charging stalls. Please, they're not parking spaces, they're charging stalls. If you're gonna charge your electric vehicle, fair game. But if you're just gonna park there, when there's plenty of other parking, it's not like reserved parking for electric vehicles. So, and that's not just a Tesla thing. It just happened to be two Teslas. I've seen owners of all different makes of electric vehicles do the same thing. Please don't block the charging stalls. They're needed for people on long trips like I'm taking here today. All right, well, I'm gonna stay here for about a half an hour, 45 minutes, just enough to make it back to New Jersey. I'm gonna jump into Denny's and grab some coffee. And next up, we're gonna talk to Wade Sheffer from General Motors, or GM Energy, and talk a little bit about GM Energy's charging strategy. I've got a lot of questions for Wade as far as, you know, all the different things they're doing right now. I find it interesting that they've got all these different partnerships going on at once. It's not like they just have one strategy and say, okay, let's just give Aboona a ton of money. They know what they're doing. They're like, no, we're gonna do this stuff with EVgo. We're gonna do this stuff at Pilot Travel Centers. We're gonna partner with ChargePoint and install 500 DC fast chargers around the country. And I also wanna talk to them about the whole NACS thing, because I really thought that all of these new ChargePoint stations were gonna be CCS1 and NACS with the ChargePoint's Omniport. In my opinion, if you're installing charging equipment here in 2025, DC fast chargers, you need to be able to service CCS1 and NACS vehicles. You can't just install CCS1 like what I've seen here and up in Niagara Falls. there were no OmniPorts, there were no NACS connectors, and that's a problem as far as I'm concerned. So I want to ask Wade about that. All right, next up will be the interview with Wade, hopefully at least. I don't have it confirmed at this point, but I believe it's going to happen. Okay, well, I'm here today with Dalya Aboona. She is the manager of public charging for General Motors. Dalya, thanks for joining me here today on State of Charge.
Thanks so much. I'm really happy to be here and to talk about all things public charging that we're doing at General Motors.
Okay, well, before we jump into the video, I want to explain in the last scene, I mentioned that I'm going to be talking to Wayne Sheffer, the VP of GM Energy. And actually, after thinking about what we're talking about here, infrastructure and so forth, I thought Dalya might be even a better fit for this conversation. And General Motors was kind enough to set that up for us. So we've got the person here to talk to about public charging infrastructure, which is what this video is about. And what it's really about, I had just finished a trip with a Cadillac Escalade IQ up to Niagara Falls from northern New Jersey. The vehicle did fantastically. Matter of fact, it has such great range, I didn't even have to stop. I purposely didn't charge it the night before so I could stop at the new ChargePoint chargers that are on the way to Niagara. And that's what I really want to talk to you about here, because a month or so ago, General Motors announced a new partnership with ChargePoint to install 500 DC fast chargers. So maybe, Dalya, you could talk a little bit about that partnership and why you did it, what you're doing, and what you hope to accomplish.
Absolutely. Happy to answer that. And maybe before I do, I just wanted to take a step back to kind of tell you and share how it all began. So at General Motors, we're fully committed to an all-electric future. And so we recognize that charging is a big and critical part of that. So GM actually created a dedicated business unit called GM Energy, which I'm a part of, to focus on all things charging, from powering up at home to on the go on the road. And so we're not just building electric vehicles, we're building the full charging ecosystem. Not just for our customers, GM customers, but for all. So this is why we collaborate with industry leaders like ChargePoint, EVgo, Pilot Flying J to build that network and curate the right solution for our customers. And so to answer your question, we announced our collaboration with ChargePoint back in December with the goal to expand coverage. And we're doing it fast. We already have 9 operational sites, as you mentioned, in upstate New York and California, with the goal to go up to 500 stalls. So really exciting. These are all DC fast chargers, some featuring, 6+ stalls. We have varying power levels, and really excited that GM and ChargePoint get to work on this. We believe that we are not just an active participant when it comes to removing those types of barriers for EV adoption, but we have the ability to do it and the responsibility as well.
Okay, so a question. ChargePoint was an interesting partner to me because I understood the EVgo relationship there. EVgo manages and maintains its network. So you could give them a bunch of money and say, okay, how many chargers will this get us? And they'll just go do their thing. They install the chargers, they manage the chargers, they do everything. But ChargePoint isn't necessarily a ChargePoint operator, as funny as that sounds, because their name is ChargePoint. They're not really what a traditional CPO. They sell equipment and they don't manage the site. And I know General Motors doesn't want to get into the business of going out and managing, chargers and all over the country. Who manages and maintains the chargers in this partnership? Because I know EVgo manages theirs, but if a charger breaks, who's responsible for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Really good question. You're right. ChargePoint operates a little bit differently than EVgo. And so our collaboration is with ChargePoint, and we work really closely together to identify third-party hosts and site hosts that we strategically work with who are expanding this infrastructure. So it's the relationship is with ChargePoint, and they help us find those site hosts and pick those locations. And so together, we're collaborating to strategically place, to strategically pick those sites for us. So it is more than one party, which has been really exciting to see because it gives us a diverse look at everything that's happening. One of the companies we work with is 060. There's others also there, so just continues to grow.
So it's not necessarily the site host, because one of the chargers I stopped at, let's say, was at a hotel up in Niagara Falls. The hotel isn't the one that's maintaining the chargers. You have a third party like management company that's doing it.
Yes, so they're what we'd call a charging station operator as a third party. In some cases, they are the site host. In other cases, they're not.
Okay, great. So you mentioned earlier about your different partnerships with Flying J's and EVgo and so forth, which you've really partnered with a lot of different companies to install thousands of DC fast chargers around the company. But the interesting thing is, once Iona launched, and General Motors is a founding member of Iona, once that launched, I expected that would be the end of these little, I would call them little side projects. 500 DC fast chargers is not a little side project, but it is in comparison to, like, let's say Iona is going to install 30,000 charging stalls in 5 years. So I thought that would be the end of your projects, that you'd say, okay, Iona is our go-to for DC fast charging, but it's not. You're continuing to forge new partnerships. Is that going to continue as we go on? Are you still going to do stuff on your own and in addition to what Iona's doing?
Yeah, I love this question. And I know I covered this a little bit, but I'd like to take it maybe a step deeper. So when we began this journey a few years ago, we focused solely on what the customer wants. And, that's one of our core values, to put the customer at the center of everything that we do, to curate that best in class experience. So we started with the metro space, right? So we worked with EVgo to put chargers in locations that have large EV penetration, but also in charging deserts to fill in the gaps. With some of those learnings later on, we decided it would be great to make an impact on the corridor space in that side of the business. So that's where we partnered with Pilot Flying J Company and EVgo to put thoughtful sites in place, some featuring canopies, larger stall count, pull-through stalls for those who are towing. And that program has been so successful that in 2025, for example, it's been consistently in the top 3 networks with Plug Score, which is incredible. So we're continuing to learn. And from that came the next step, which is being the driving force behind Iona's joint venture. They are building these, nostalgic sites that, combine old world charm with new technology. And we'd love to see it. They're, creating kind of this unique experience. And so we're a part of that. But each day we're learning, each day we're growing, and we're very excited to be part of this landscape. And so, back in December when we made this announcement with ChargePoint, it just made sense. It was the right time, right place, the right partnership. And so every day we're evaluating what could be next and what do our customers want, and we're listening to what they want and need. And so this is just the beginning, and we're very excited to be on this journey.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Iona. I've used their stations a few times now. Everything that they're doing seems to be right on mark. I think that they closely followed this industry for the last few years and identified some of the pain points that electric vehicle drivers experience and tried to right those. And I think that's admirable. And one of the things you mentioned about was the state-of-the-art equipment that they're using, which is fantastic, which is going to bring me back to where we are with ChargePoint. And here's where the question gets a little bit more difficult. So in my trip up to Niagara, the stations that I used were 200 kilowatt ChargePoint chargers, and none of them had NACS connectors. To me, those are two mistakes, or two problems. The power, 200 kilowatt, all the Iona chargers are 400 kilowatt, and all the Iona sites have both NACS and CCS1 connectors. In the press release, when you announced this partnership with ChargePoint, you did mention that the Omniport chargers were going to be used. And I assumed that that meant they were going to be on all the locations, but they weren't on any of the New York locations. It was just CCS. Don't you think that's a little bit 2020? I feel like all the chargers being installed today should be 350 to 400 kilowatt and have NACS and CCS1 connectors. Explain that.
Really good question. With the ChargePoint, there is a lineup of different products with varying power levels that we look at. And so when it comes to the site, especially if it's site that, for example, In-N-Out or some of, Chipotle or different things like that, we know that the customer is going to spend more time there. So we have to match that experience and how long the customer is looking to dwell there with the power level that we have. And that's to kind of to ensure that you're not overdoing it, but you also thinking about how the customer is going to be there, how they're going to behave. And so in the case of the various power levels, we are looking at what makes sense for that location, what the site is capable of putting in and installing. But a number of our sites, a large number of them, will have the Express 400 the 400 kW Express Plus unit. As for your question regarding the Omniport, some of those locations didn't install the Omniport yet, and we're working on getting that updated. We really focused on speed to just get the charger out there in place and doing it fast. So many of those sites will go back and will be retrofitted with the Omniport. That's that. I guess the other thing too is that we have adapters on our GM Energy website that can help customers transition during this time. But yes, we are definitely aware of that, and we will continue to update and retrofit.
Okay, that's great to hear that you'd be open to retrofitting because I know the adapters are out there. You sell them. I've made videos on them. They're not that expensive to get, but it is in 2025. I kind of feel like every site should have a mixture of the NACS and the CCS, and it was a little disappointing that none of them had it. I thought maybe one or two of them might have it, and I had to give you a little bit of that right here now because otherwise I've been very I've admired General Motors' foray into DC fast charging. You guys have really done a great job, and I don't think that many people have noticed that. Everybody gives Tesla all the credit in the world for their superchargers, and they are fantastic. The supercharger network is really first class. But what you guys are doing is actually amazing. The thousands and thousands of chargers you're installing, high-speed DC fast chargers, in addition to the Aboona investment. I thought that you should be commended for that, and that's really the driving reason for me putting out this video. So before we leave, is there anything else you want to talk about with GM's charging strategy, home charging, vehicle to home, anything else you'd like to let the followers know?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess just to kind of go back to our commitment to our customers, GM Energy focuses on the two sides of it, the home charging and the public charging side. So we know a large percentage of charging happens at home. So we've crafted a suite of products that cater to those customers, from our 11.5 unidirectional unit to a 19.2 kilowatt bidirectional unit. We've got adapters to help our GM drivers access the Tesla supercharger network and to transition smoothly during this period. And many of our EV lineups today are capable of that bidirectional charging ability. So you could use it. You could use the vehicle as a backup generator at home during a power outage, or you could also kind of expand into the power banks, which you would not need the vehicle at home. So a lot of work going on that side of the business. We continue to grow our public charging network. We continue to think about how to unlock some convenient features like plug and charge, so our customers don't have to take their credit cards when they go to a charging station. GM Energy's work is earning customers' confidence to make that switch to electric. I think we have the most amazing product lineup, from affordable vehicles to luxurious SUVs, which my personal favorite, the one you took for a drive, the Cadillac Escalade IQ. So with all of that, there's just so much to offer, and it's been an exciting time to be a part of this, this journey. And I encourage everyone to check out those products, to check out what we're doing, and to give us kind of some of the feedback and how things are going. We are definitely, when it comes to public charging, we are definitely continuing to elevate that game and have that great customer experience, because our goal is to delight the customer.
Okay, well, that's really all I have here today, Dalya. Thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it. And please keep installing DC fast chargers. We need as many as we can get, but we also need high power and chargers that have all the different connector options also. So just keep at it, and people will keep buying your electric vehicles.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you for your time today and for the opportunity.
And once again, I'd like to thank Dalya for taking the time out of her, what I'm sure is a very busy schedule, to come here and talk to me on State of Charge about General Motors' public electric vehicle charging strategy. And it's pretty diverse. As I mentioned in the video, I'm surprised that they're continuing to do these partnerships with ChargePoint and EVgo once they became the founding member of Aboona. I thought all the money was going to go to Aboona, and that was going to be their strategy. Evidently, that's not the case. They're going to continue to do these side projects and install DC fast chargers where they see fit. And this isn't a small program, but we're talking thousands of DC fast chargers in addition to what Aboona is going to be installing. So General Motors is very active in this space, and I thought that I should make this video to let people know that, in case you didn't know. There's another company that's also very active with DC fast chargers right now, and that's Mercedes. So I'd like to give them credit also, but not too many of the other companies are actually getting involved outside of being involved in programs like the 8 founding members of Aboona. Mercedes is also an Aboona member. They're installing their own Mercedes charging network. General Motors is doing this with these thousands of DC fast chargers. You don't hear anything from companies like Ford with regards to installing public DC fast charging. Very little. They did try to make a big push a couple of years ago with Model E, but that program put most of the heavy lifting on the backs of their dealerships, and the dealers fought back. The dealerships, the dealer lobby, the NADA, they all kind of got together, and Ford had to back down and cancel that program. So unfortunately, Ford's not going to have the DC fast chargers at all of their dealerships like they had hoped to. And if they want to get involved with DC fast charging, they'd have to do something like join Aboona. Aboona is open to having more members, or something like what General Motors is doing with EVgo and ChargePoint. But you just kind of hear crickets from Ford over there with regards to public charging infrastructure. I don't mean to beat up on Ford. I'm just giving an example of an automaker that isn't doing everything in the space that General Motors is as far as helping public infrastructure advance. And General Motors certainly is doing that. Now, it's not perfect. As I mentioned in the video, I would have preferred to see higher powered chargers on this new ChargePoint program. Also, the OmniPort chargers, or at least have options for NACS connectors as well as CCS1 connectors. As it is now, at least the sites that I visited, they're only CCS1, so you'd need to have an adapter if you have a NACS vehicle. But Dalya did say that these were some of the first ones installed in this network, and perhaps the future ones are going to be the higher powered, the 400 kilowatt ChargePoint chargers, and also with the OmniPort. And they could also go back and retrofit these with the OmniPort chargers if they need to. So hopefully they'll do that, because honestly, in 2025, DC fast chargers, at least corridor ones, ones that are in more urban centers, can be lower powered, but the ones on the corridors, like the ones I took up to Niagara Falls, I think they should all be 400 kilowatt units and have both plug options at every location. So, and that's what Aboona's doing. All 400 kilowatt Alpatronic units, and every site has a mixture of NACS and CCS1 plugs. I think that's the right way to do it. And hopefully GM will continue that with these other side programs. All right, well, that's all I have here today. If this is your first time here at State of Charge, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming electric vehicle news and reviews. And as always, thanks for watching.